We probably all have those movies that we know every line to, like if the opportunity came along to do a shadow cast Rocky Horror style, you'd be like, yeah, throw it up there, I can do the whole thing on my own. For me, that movie is Ghostbusters 1 and 2. I watched these movies over and over as a tween to teenager. My love of the Ghostbusters was something I wore proudly as a badge of my geek cred growing up, and that love for the movies extended to the spin-off animation. Hardcore fans, I'm sure you already know it, no, not that one, sorry, this one, Extreme Ghostbusters, the original next-gen attempt, and featuring a team of Egon Spengler's kids, not literally, decades before Afterlife. This was a sequel series to The Real Ghostbusters, which is a cute Ghostbusters the animation situation where they have these merchandise-friendly, colour-coded looks that are more visually distinct from each other than the OG movies as 3 white guys with brown hair and 1 black guy all wearing the same outfit situation. Slimer is like their pet, and they continue to bust ghosts and ghoulies and what have you. This series has its many dedicated fans, but tragically, I'm not one of them. So it wasn't actually a lingering devotion to the real Ghostbusters that had me scouring the net for the series' successor. No, I had a much more convoluted path in. Many in my specific age and first language bracket will share this experience, I'm sure, crushing hard on either Kovu from The Lion King 2 or Haku from Spirited Away. 2 emo boyfriend types played by the same gentleman, and Mr. Jason Marsden, probably most well known for being the second voice of Goofy's son Max, but he's been in like every Western cartoon since the 1990s. And now, I've not seen everything Mars is in, but I have seen like a lot of it. Like all the episodes of Boy Meets World that he was in, Hocus Pocus, this incredibly iconic performance as Dash X in Erie, Indiana, what a great series that should have lasted longer. This weird little rolled bug in this atrocious horny horror movie How to Make a Monster. Here he is in his tiny shorts and terrifying blue contacts playing Burt Ward playing Robin in Return to the Batcave. He was Eddie Munster in the 90s reboot of The Munsters even, and he's Ren's boss in the episode of Even Stevens where she's working in a toast place. He looks so stupid here, but I'm like, that awful little nerd can get it. Is it obvious yet? I'm a Mars girly through and through. And it was like maybe 2013 or something, I was a teenager, and I just finished watching through all of Kim Possible, scrolling around on TV tropes like I did whenever I finished something, just to, feel something after getting through all of the actual show content. Mars played a minor role in KP as Felix, a disabled student and friend of Ron, paralleling Marsden's hopefully unshakable bond of real-life friendship with fellow actor Will Friedle. I was going through the tropes, and you'll just have to take my word for it because the page has been updated since then, but there was this entry describing his character as basically being Garrett Miller from Extreme Ghostbusters. And this was for 2 reasons, I would say, kind of 2 reasons only. 1, a wheelchair user, and 2, played by Mars. And well, I was like, cool, another Jason Marsden role to tick off my watch list, and hey, I already love Ghostbusters, so this should be a slam dunk. So my sister and I sat down to watch it, and slam dunk indeed. Extreme Ghostbusters kicks ass. It's grungier than its predecessor cartoon because it's the 1990s now, which was all about being grungy, but it still had the formula of being like, here's the monster of the week for our team to defeat. The franchise is called Ghostbusters, but it's honestly more like demons, monsters, and cryptid busters. It's not so much that they're shuffling off the spirits of dead people. They fight everything from the Jersey Devil to Banshees to Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China. It's off the chain, and probably actually my favourite of the Ghostbusters incarnations. I'm nearly 30 now, but I was a teenager when I watched it for the first time, and with XGB being a next gen with a diverse group of college students making up the team, it was like, whoa, their youth makes this so much more relatable. And there's even a girl. Boy howdy, is there ever a girl. Kylie Griffin remains, I think, the most popular of the XGB characters. Nerd guys love goth girls, and I've seen just so much horny fan art of her without asking to. DeviantArt is a place that really lives up to its name. Her status in the proverbial spank bank got her the role of only XGB character to be transplanted as a supporting main character into the spin-off IDW comics, but I can't stand the way she's drawn. Why does she have this awful duck mouth? Comics Kylie is really difficult to look at, but I love the Kylie from Extreme Ghostbusters. And as the first true girl Ghostbuster, yes, we do have Janine, but she did not debut as a Ghostbuster, Kylie stands out in her team of fellow misfits for being the only chick in a crew of dudes. But this set of Egon's original kids, as I like to think of them, could have been a much more girl-forward group. They could even have been the original group of Girlbusters, long before the 2016 team in Answer the Call. Phil Barlow was the lead character designer of the show, and responsible for both the XGB team themselves, as well as the ghosts and demons and what have you that they bust. And Barlow offered up a whole heap of concept art exploring character archetypes of loner, slacker, jock, and nerd. It's just that unlike the final product, most of the concept drawings that he was faxing to the boss were of female characters. Barlow has shared a fair few of his design sketches for the team online. In one of his DeviantArt posts, Barlow states that he wanted to try and create girl characters as early in the process as possible, and describes creating a smorgasbord of rough sketches. Here I've got 3 gals, 1 butch lesbian looking tough as nails, 1 pseudo-intellectual goth, and 1 very troubled chick with a baby fringe. The middle goth one is obviously the one who would develop into Kylie, and tough as nails would be refined, as Barlow says, into Lucy. Apparently there was a desire by the creators to make a team that was more diversely representative and create a group of misfits and unlikely heroes. It seems Richard Rainis, co-creator and executive producer of the show, requested a wheelchair user character from Barlow, so Barlow offered up Lucy, here, who's got crutches and leg braces for her mobility aids, as Barlow claims to have had concerns about animating a wheelchair user, citing eye lines and perspective issues, but Rainis held fast, so Barlow did a design with Lucy in the chair. Barlow states, Rainis wanted the character in the wheelchair to be fearless and gung-ho. I did my best to sell the fact that a female character could easily accomplish the same role. Richard wasn't convinced. What I was offering didn't fit the character that he was forming in his mind. Resigned, I simply changed the Lucy design into a male and Garrett was born. So that's that. I'd always wondered why the prototype toy Garrett in the insane tricked out chair had blonde hair. I think it's because he's still got Lucy's hair, but more likely it's because prototypes aren't necessarily painted in their final colours, but I'm gonna say it's Lucy's hair. This guy's Lucas, actually. And it wasn't just the jock character that Barlow was gunning for Team Girl with, but the nerd as well. Julia here rocks some sort of ghost-busting chest piece, and was again traded out for a male character instead. And I've found no more images on any of Barlow's public sites, but apparently, for a while, Roland had long dreads, presumably left over from Julia here, which were too hip for the bookish character that Richard had in mind. So the dreads became cornrows, and then ended up with Roland's final, more conservative haircut. I actually think Roland's hair is really cool. Anyway, I don't know if Eduardo, the final member of Team Ghostbusting Intern, had a female initial pass or not, but I have read online that the legacy character that would have become the mentor could have been Janine Melnitz, college history professor, rather than Egon Spengler, as was the final choice. So the team of Girlbusters could have been mentored by a lady, and Spengler was then instead going to be a supporting wizard figure who spent the years between real Ghostbusters and Extreme Ghostbusters doing ghostly shenanigans in the world beyond the ghost containment unit, and that made him into a wizard. Fine. But in the end, Janine was relegated to her original role of secretary, and also takes on kind of a den mother role to the new team, though she actually gets reintroduced to us in the pilot episode of Extreme Ghostbusters as a mature student who signed up to one of Spengler's lectures at a community college. She's one of 5, which Egon's happy about because that's 4 more than last year. The other students are our younger characters, boy to girl ratio at 3-1. I'm sorry, Phil, you were really trying to say girl power, but they silenced you. Of course, later we did get a Girlbusters team, but rather than young, hot cartoon girls, we got 4 normal-looking women in their 40s. In a reboot that sent fans spiraling, I often wonder if Extreme Ghostbusters had been a live-action sequel movie in the modern day, public outcry, would that have been as similarly vehement? If we'd been presented with a young and attractive alt-girl Ghostbuster, would she have been received better than Gilbert, Yates, Holtzman and Tolan? And if the team had been all young hot college girls, what then? Anyways, lack of gender equality aside, I really like the group that we did get. My actual real and non-incendiary theory is that XGB would probably have been received alright if it came out nowadays, because it has the legacy through line with Egon as a mentor, rather than Answer the Call's straight reboot / alternate universe in which Spengler, Venkman, Stantz and Zeddemore didn't exist. I've heard that the sequel movies Afterlife and Frozen Kingdom have fared better, and I suspect it could be because of the biological familial Spengler connection creating a next gen for the film films, who are then of course mentored by the OG team of the 80s film. But when it comes to sequel crews, my heart will always belong to Kylie, Garrett, Roland, and Eduardo. I sort of assume you're watching this video because you're already an XGB fan. Hello, I'm also a fan, constantly seeking out matching opinions. So if that's you, then you already know the gang, but if you don't already know them and you've stuck around this long, hi, can I introduce you to my best friends from college? Kylie is a cute goth girl with a wavering New York or New Jersey accent, and she signed up to Egon Spengler's Paranormal Phenomena 101 class because she's a genuine fan of Spengler's books and research into the paranormal, and she's also kind of longing to see her dead grandmother again. She starts the pilot in a kick-ass slave Victorian-style goth outfit and then downgrades to a miniskirt and vest top for the rest of the series, but I respect that. She said comfort over style. She's sort of pegged as the loner in universe, but she seems pretty loyal to and happy to hang out with her boys, even if it's just like parallel play. And I would class her more as the brainy one. She was labelled pseudo-knowledgeable in her original concept sketch, but I would drop the pseudo, she's plenty smart. Also, she has an incredibly unique ghost-busting outfit compared to the standard boiler suit situation that we've seen up until now. She's got a bunch of different sports gear on, some elbow and knee protection, and a black unitard under some American football armour, so it's just so odd. I guess maybe there were no jumpsuits in her size. Kylie has a crush on Eduardo, though I don't particularly think their relationship is that sparkling. You may see the ship differently. Anyway, Eduardo is the slacker who signed up to Ghostbusting 101 for an easy A. He's the non-believer in the pilot, but that doesn't really last that long, obviously. He's always throwing out zingers and one-liners, but they kind of all are. Still, I think he gets the most zingers and some of the funniest. He's also kind of stupid. Maybe Kylie's just morosexual. He's pretty much there to remind us that even scrawny, sarcastic, lazy people can step it up and be a hero doing ecto-exterminations. But actually, genuinely, Eduardo is shown to be selfless and brave when it counts, and I like that just towards the end of the series they have a go at trying to highlight the struggle of immigrant families to like assimilate or not, and the friction between Eduardo and his cop brother who wants to be totally Americanized and wants Eduardo to be as well. You know, we're touching on the issues a little bit. Pretty cool. And Eduardo, like Kylie, has his own weird ghostbusting outfit. No jumpsuit for him either. Instead, whenever they get a call, he goes off to change out of his grey trousers, white shirt, and brown jacket into a pair of blue jeans, a green polo shirt, and a brown vest. Like, at least Kylie's put some protective gear on. Eduardo said, no. I want to channel that Shaggy Rogers working at Home Depot vibe, you know? I just don't get it. Why did they go diving in the college lost and found, but the other two didn't? So Garrett is the Jason Marsden one, and if he was not played by Marsden, there is every possibility I wouldn't have watched this series or even enjoyed this character. He's the jock one, and he took Ghosts 101 because he's a fan of the OGs and he really wants to do violence to spirits. Love that energy. The show actually tells us in one episode that Garrett's disabled from birth and not later injury, so he's grown up this way, has no interest in being fixed, which I think is a positive, but also like Garrett doesn't visualize himself as non-disabled, even in dreams or if he's been like spectrally separated from his body. I liked the commitment here to a seated posture even when he's a ghost. He's not really a ghost, he's okay. They also never explicitly say just what his disability is, they just use the word disabled, which is perfectly reasonable. You never owe anybody your medical history. But he seems to be paraplegic and makes remarks implying such.
How you holding up, Eduardo?
Okay, except my legs are kinda numb.
I know the feeling.
I read in an interview that showrunner Bob Higgins did with Ability magazine that the cartoon did have a disability consultant, a guy called Kirk Kilgore, a quadriplegic former Olympian volleyballer and sports commentator, to keep them on track with regards to the disability representation and in-universe accessibility concerns for such a character, so props for that. Anyway, they show Garrett not only pulling off cool and extreme stunts, but also wiping out and being flung into walls just as much as everybody else. They said equality is that everyone's always getting flung, even the guy in the wheelchair. Roland is the last new member of the team. I really love and appreciate Roland. There's like a 50-50 split in the team of people who will be blasé and make jokes when you call them out to bust a ghost, and people who will be nice and tell you everything's gonna be okay. Roland is one of the nice ones. Kylie's the other one. His thing is being the gadgeteer of the group, and he took Ghosts 101 because he's also a car enthusiast, and he really wants a chance to get behind the wheel of the Ecto-1. He's played by Alfonso Ribeiro, and I think that casting alone really sells the dorky vibe he's got going on. Ribeiro has a great youthful sound that can alternately be like the cute nerd or the surprisingly commanding Ghostbuster. And also, just look at his pajamas. I could not love him or these smiley face jammies more. His apparent character flaw is being totally tech reliant. This boy would be falling in love with AI if it was a modern day. No. No faith of mine would ever treat ChatGPT like their girlfriend. He's a sweet soul who loves music, and also his friends act like he's terrible at playing violin, but he honestly seems fine to me. This boy is a catch, and Kylie and Garrett obviously think so, because they have an episode where they're trying to set him up with various girls, but he's just not into it, and I think it's because he's gay. So I like that this group doesn't really have like a leader. Bob Higgins stated that the creative team specifically did not want to create a leader, which I do think is kind of in keeping with the original Ghostbusters team from the movies. Like, if you think about it, Bill Murray was the face, but I would not call Venkman the leader. I think they all kind of take turns being the one to direct the team. They're all just passing the ball around. And I just really like the group dynamic of the 4 students. They all have different relationships with each other, and I think it's cute. They do feel like a group of real friends whose love language is teasing each other. They rotate it, you know, everyone gets a turn to be the one everyone else is razzing. I'm not sure if their Ghostbusters gig is a paid job or if they're all just interns doing this for extra credit with Professor Spengler, but since they're Ghostbusters, that means they get to hang out at Ghost HQ, the firehouse. And in most episodes, we see them all there in between calls. They're usually all in the same room, but they kind of pair off amongst themselves. Eduardo and Garrett are like boy besties, I guess. They like boy stuff, like sports and video games, and I feel like the playing of the sports and the video games is like a cultural exchange between them. Like, I'll play video games with you if you shoot hoops with me later, kind of thing. Roland and Kylie are less likely to be slacking off, but they're also usually doing something different or being Egon's teacher's pets. Kylie's usually reading a book, and Roland's usually tinkering with something, but I already said that these two are like the nicer ones. They still take part in group teasing, but Kylie's more likely to defend Roland from the other two. And then Kylie and Eduardo have their mutual crush. They've got their cute moments in between fighting and then having saucy dreams about each other, or actually it's mostly just Eduardo having the dreams. But they do a fair bit of saving each other from danger, and I'm sure that the adrenaline kind of gets them going. Can I be crazy and say I actually think there's something to Kylie and Garrett as well? They have more of like a playful friendship, and he's the only one of the 3 guys that she's ever seen hanging out with one-on-one outside of work or college. Plus, I kind of feel like this scene where he carries her away from danger in his lap and then asks,
"Wanna ride again?"
is low-key flirting. That's flirting to me. In much the same way, I think that flirting is also wiping the floor with your friends in a physical contest, so maybe he's into everybody. I'm saying Garrett is Pan and Polly, and guess what? So did Mars.
I think it would be like one just big pile. I'll bet Garrett was pansexual. He loved everybody.
So, like, thank you, King. Right, I feel like I'm supposed to talk about the plot and not just the characters, which, like, I mean, characters the point, really, aren't they? Like, we watch stuff for the characters, or at least I do. Who's out there watching it for the plot? But if I was going to give you some episodes that I think are good, let's go with Ghost in the Machine. Eduardo's going to do his driving test, but a demon turns all the cars in New York into these funny, silly-looking monster cars. I just enjoy those cars. The Jersey Devil made me do it. They're out of town for spring break to go to a ghost convention, but end up having to use old-timey methods to bust the Jersey Devil instead. Also, I can't lie, I thought the townsfolk were ostracizing them for their queer polycule vibe, but it turns out they just wanted to sacrifice them to the Jersey Devil for bringing it upon the town in the first place. Insane. Ghost apocalyptic future, this one's good. Kylie gets time displaced into a distant future and has to work both with her own team and the future team to get home. And be careful what you wish for. There's a joke in here about Kylie's pussy. The main thing to note about Extreme Ghostbusters episodes is that they're 22 minutes, so the pacing is pretty concise, which I honestly think they do well, though episodes end really abruptly, like, most of the time, and also because ultimately it was for kids. Any innocent bystanders who are harmed by demons and monsters and what have you, get that harm undone by hand-wavy magic in the end. Like, as soon as they get sucked in, all the people who got their eyeballs stolen have their eyeballs just pop back in, or these dudes that got all their bones removed, those bones grew back, they're cool, they're fine. My best friends from college stopped appearing on screens after 1 season of 40 episodes, the last 2 of which featured a return of the real Ghostbusters for a team-up. So that's roughly 15 hours of content, not bad. I believe this is one of those cartoons that were actually just a big advert to sell toys. The toys look awesome, but incredibly ugly, by the way, and they didn't sell enough toys, so the advert ended. But I miss the advert. I want to keep seeing the advert. In the present day, the closest we have to the advert is the XGB cosmetic items in the multiplayer video game Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed that were released in 2023. You can make your player character look like the XGB kids if you like. They have hairstyles for all 4 of them and they look so fun. They're great translations from the 2D to the 3D. Since these are cosmetics, like, they're for using on your own player character, so you can be Kylie or Roland or Eduardo, no problem. Your Garrett would have to be the frighteningly possessed ambulatory body sans his soul, role from the episode The Ghostmakers, though. There's no mobility aids in this game, and I've seen quite a few fan-uploaded XGB teams on Facebook and YouTube where they omit Garrett on principle, because nobody wants a possessed ambulatory Garrett, it's just wrong, but then that's a shame because then no one's playing as Garrett at all. So, instead of just Easter egg type cosmetics, honestly, I kind of love it if they had a proper video game appearance. This is wishful thinking here from me. I think the different skills and limitations of the specific group could actually be really fun to play as in like a video game with a plot, and you'd have to use each of them for certain goals or something, and like use all 4 members. It could be so cool, and you could roll those voice actors back into the booth, and if the characters look like this, then they could look so good. Extreme Ghostbusters actually does have a video game where you can technically play as a team and they all have their own stats. The PS1 game, Extreme Ghostbusters, The Ultimate Invasion, is that game, but it's just like a first-person walk through hallways, shoot 2D ghosts kind of situation, where you can't see who you're playing as and there's no story or voice acting or anything. And there's also a Game Boy Color platformer with these cute pixel art versions of them, and you can switch between team members as you please. There seems to be no difference in what they can do. I mean, I never doubted that Garrett could jump or climb a ladder, you know. There's no story or voice acting here either. Then of course there was the big IDW Comics crossover event, which was pretty fun. All the incarnations of the Ghostbusters at the time were there. I try not to look too hard at Duckmouth Kylie, or really Duckmouth anybody, but I was relieved that XGB Kylie and her friends looked pretty nicely on model for their cartoon selves. But that was just a special, and the comics ended in 2020, so like, bummer. I actually do really wish there had been a proper run of XGB comics to be like a little continuation, but if I'm being realistic, I just don't think we're gonna see this particular team again in any significant way. Cry, cry, sob. So ends my ramble. If you've not already watched the series and it piques your curiosity, I think you'll probably find it somewhere, questionably legally, or possibly buy DVDs. I've like only watched it myself in crunchy 144p with the Toon Disney logo in the bottom right corner, but even at that resolution, the charm is just so there. The voice acting in particular is honestly so characterful. It's one of those ones where the cast did record together, so the dialogue and, you know, the way that they interact sounds more real to me. I recommend watching this Zoom reunion to get a bit more background on the cast dynamic when working together if you're interested. I feel like it really shines. And also the monster character design work is good enough that I think if they were realised more realistically, they'd be terrifying. I like the humour, and to be honest, I like the janky, kind of ugly on purpose art style where every character's genuinely got their own unique face. It could be that I'm like nostalgia pilled, but a lot of modern cartoons don't excite me because they all just look so clean and vectorized, and the art style just gives everyone the same face, you know what I mean? Oh, and speaking of new cartoons, apparently the next foray into next gen is Young Ghostbusters. Again, possibly actual youngsters too, like the Spengler grandchildren from Afterlife. It's probably not for me, but hey, it might very well possibly sell some toys. Alright, that's it. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, thank you, and you will see me again if there is another one. Goodbye.